Hi there! In today's video, I'm working on my ChatGPT CodeInterpreter clone project again. And today, I would like to create a sandbox environment in which the Python code that this runs is executed. Now, let me first show you, if you haven't seen the previous videos, how this works. So I can select this code interpreter mode in my ChatWTF ChatGPT clone. And if I say something like, create an example of a sine wave, then it will run some Python code in the background and then it will answer us. And in this case, it actually opened the sine wave here in an actual window because we are running this locally, so it can do that. But if I close this, then we will actually get the answer back from ChatGPT. And here we have the sine wave as well, directly in the response. And currently how this works is it will create this data directory into which it will create a directory with the ID of the conversation. And then inside that, there will be another data directory into which ChatGPT is supposed to write all the files. But we are actually running the Python code from this chat ID folder. And since we are running this locally, then it will actually have access to anywhere on the computer, which is not that great. Now, we do have an option to run this in Docker, but it will still run the whole web server in Docker. So it can still break the web server. So let me show you what I mean. So if I actually run this, so I build the Docker image and then I run the Docker image, then now I have it running at port 8080. So if I go to localhost 8080, then here I have the application. And if I then select the code interpreter and I say, write hello world into ... index.php, then it will happily write hello world into that file. And of course, what will happen then is if I refresh this page, it will say hello world because it overwrote our index.php file. So that is not a very good thing. Now, of course, since I ran this in the Docker container, then nothing happened here. I still have my index.php, but inside of the Docker container, I don't have it. So let's try to fix this thing. Now, I do think that Docker is the way to solve this thing. So currently we are running the Python code in CodeInterpreter.php. So this is a class that I created from my separate PHP code interpreter terminal version. And here we have a function called run Python code, which takes the code and then it writes the code into a file and then it will execute the following command. So it will first change into the chat directory, which is the data directory for this given chat. And then it will run the Python command, which is basically just Python 3. But on Windows, it's Python. So we just have this get Python command function here that either gets it from the settings or it gets it from the operating system. And basically, we just run the code from the file and then we get the output and return it to ChatGPT. So now, instead of using the Python 3 command directly, what we could do is we could open a Docker container and then run the code in there and get the result back. So let's see if we can do that. So let's create a new folder here. Let's call this Sandbox. And let's create a Docker file here. And I guess we could use from Python. And if I remember how it works, then I would just write it, but I don't remember. So let's check out Python Docker. And let's see how this actually works. So we have all these different versions. So I am going to pick, I'm not sure which one I should pick. I think actually ChatGPT uses 3.8 for some reason. So I might pick that one. So let's copy this 3.8.18 bookworm. I guess it might be just 3.8. And then what else do we have to do? We of course have to install the dependencies, but let's see. Okay, from Python, and then work here is that, and we copy requirements there, and we run pip install, and that's it. And we don't have to do this CMD because we want to run a different CMD every time. So let's in fact do this, and let's paste it here. And let's create a requirements.txt. So requirements.txt. And I in fact have a list of good requirements already because someone was very helpful in my previous project. So in my PHP code interpreter, we have a Docker file. Sorry, we have a requirements.txt. And here we have a bunch of things. So we might as well install all of these so that we can actually do something with Python. So let's put all of these in here. And let's then actually try to build this sandbox. So if we cd into sandbox and we do sudo docker build t sandbox, and we are going to say dot this current directory we are going to build, then it should install Python and it should install all the requirements in there. And now that that has been built, then we can run it. So now what we can do is we can run sudo docker run, and we can say I, which stands for, I don't remember what, is it interactive? Basically, it means that we can run some command inside of this container. So without running the cmd that could be inside the Docker file. And we are going to also say --rm. So we will remove the container after we run it, because we just run it once. And then we can say Python 3, and we can say C, and we can pass here some Python code. So if we say print hello world, and we run this, then it actually, we actually have to add the name of the container first. So we have to add sandbox here, and it has to be before this command. So sandbox here. Then now if we run this, then it will actually run hello world inside of the Docker container. So that's actually pretty simple. So now we just have to convert our Python 3 command in our code to use docker run like this. So let's try and do that. So let's copy this and let's go to our code interpreter, and we have our get Python command. But we want to actually change this whole execution command that we run. So let's do something like this. If this docker enabled, or let's say sandbox enabled, then we are going to do something, and otherwise we are going to do that. So if the sandbox is enabled, we are going to say exec, and we are going to do this. Sorry, what is that? This one. Damn it, where is my code? This one. Now, of course, we can't run sudo from here. This is going to be run with the data user of Apache. So what we actually have to do is we have to just run docker run, and we have to add the data user to the Docker group so that it can run it without sudo. So let's try it first. So actually I should add myself there too, so I don't have to say sudo every time. So if I say docker ps, for example, it will say that permission denied. But if I say sudo user add ag, I think it's something like this, to add to a group, and I will say docker uncon. Should I do it directly like this? Should I check the syntax? Man user add. Create a new user or update default new user information. It is then add user. Okay. Add a user or group to the system. Okay. So is there AG somewhere? There is no. I think it was AG. I'm going to ask ChatGPT, how do I add a user to the Docker group on Ubuntu? User mod AG Docker username. Okay, so I was completely wrong. Sudo user mod AG Docker and username. Okay, that was almost correct. So I can do that. And then I believe I have to start or restart Docker. Let's say if I now say docker ps, I cannot do it. But if I run sudo service docker restart, and then I run docker ps, then it still doesn't work. So what did I do wrong? Let's see. I did that, and then I should check groups uncon, and I am in Docker. Okay. Log out and log back in or restart. I don't want to do that right now, so let's see if we can do that for the data user without logging out from this session. So let's do the same thing. So sudo usermod ag docker data and service docker restart and sudo. So maybe now we can use Docker from data. Let's see if it works. So we want to run docker run I rm Python 3, and then here we have to pass in the code. Now this is a bit dangerous. I'm not sure if escape shell argument is safe enough here. So maybe we want to in fact save the code into a file and then somehow transfer it inside the Docker container. But let's do this at first. So let's just pass in the code here. And we are going to do this stuff so that we will pipe the standard error into standard out. So if something goes wrong, we get the response back. Now, I'm not sure if docker run will print out the standard error of the Python interpreter, because I guess this only applies to this command. So if docker run fails, this will pipe the standard error into standard in or standard out. But what if Python 3 fails? Are we going to get that information? I'm not sure, but let's see what happens. And we have to, of course, then get the output and the result code. And let's see if this actually works. So I forgot from somewhere, I need to add the sandbox here. And let's enable the sandbox. So let's say protected bool sandbox enabled is true. And let's see if it works. So if I now run this, let's go back here and I'm going to say, actually I have it running already. So I just restart it. I probably have to restart it at least for the Docker group to be enabled. But let's see what happens. If I now go here and I create a new chat and I select code interpreter and I say, create an example of a bell curve. And let's do this. Now, of course, this is not going to write on our computer, so we can't actually show the image, but maybe we can still run the command. Now, I'm not sure what happened to my computer right now. My cursor changed to a very weird cursor and everything got stuck. Is this because of my code? Whoa, what happened? Okay, we're back to normal. Okay, we did something. So I'm not sure if what just happened there was because we ran Docker, but at least we didn't get an error, which is promising. So now what we would have to do is we would have to actually be able to write the data into this file, because right now it's writing it inside of the Docker container and we can't access it. So what we can do is we can add a volume to this Docker container. So let's define a volume here. So let's say that we have a volume in user src app/data. And then what we can do is we can define it here. We can say v for volume, and we are going to add the chat directory, which is this, and we will bind that into user src app/data. Was that the correct place? User src app data. Okay. And in fact, I will add here /data, because previously we ran the code from the conversation ID directory, and then the Python script will have a reference to data /something. But now that we are running our Docker image, we are running it in user src app. So then we want to have the data folder, and we want to map that into this data folder, which we have to create. Hopefully we created it. Actually, I think I have it separately here. Yes, so I have data dir, which I do not save as a property, which I might want to do. So let's do that. Public string data directory. So I'm going to say that this data dir is this one. And then I can set this to data dir. Now the reason why I'm setting these local variables here as well is because I have this register shutdown function and I have this use statement. So this uses the data directory and the chat directory so that it can delete them if we didn't write any files. But now let's check this again first. So we are going to do docker run I rm v for this volume, which now has to be just this data dir. So we are going to map the data directory into user src app data. And we're going to run the sandbox and we're going to run Python 3 with this code. Let's see if that works. So I'm going to open this side panel, and we should see another directory here soon, and we should write something in there. So do I need to restart this? Let's do it anyway. And let's say create a sample of a bell curve. And let's take a look here. Do we get a new folder? We get a new folder. We get a data folder, but do we get the actual image in there? We do not. Actually, we again got into this weird place that the cursor changed. Now, this might be because we are using the matplotlib library and we are using the plt.show function, which actually opens like a window. But since we are running it in the Docker container, then maybe something weird happens there. So I'm not sure if I can close this. If I click a couple of times, it closes it. And we deleted the folder here, so it didn't quite work. And I think I know why. The reason is that we don't have a data folder inside of our Docker container. So can we do it in the Docker file? Wait, we have volume. So it should create it, right? Let's do this. Let's run our sandbox and let's run bash in there. And I think I have to actually, what happened now? I have to say probably run IT so that I can actually use it in the terminal. So I'm not sure how I can stop this now. Stop it. Create a new one and let's do that. And I will say run it rm sandbox bash. So now we are in the app. Okay, so who am I? I am root now. And actually, we don't have the data. Okay, we won't have the data now because we need to mount the volume. So let's mount a volume here. Let's say v, and we are going to say, let's mount the whole data now. So ./data will be mounted to user src app data. And then we open it, and then we have a data directory here. But who owns it? 1001. But when we run this, so is that a problem then? So if I do Python 3 here, now I'm root, I should be able to run everything. So if I say with open data/test.text as f, we are going to do f.write hello, and that's it. No such file or directory, data/test. Okay, so of course I should have opened it in the write method. So let's do that. And then we are going to say f.write hello. Okay, we wrote it, and we actually wrote it on our machine. So that should work. Why does it not work? Are we not root if we run it from PHP? So do we have to say something here? What if I say you root, which doesn't sound very safe, but let's try this again. So let's create a bell curve again. So let's take CodeInterpreter and create a bell curve. And again, we got to this weird position. So let's click a couple of times, then it goes away, and it created a bell curve, but it didn't write it. Let's do just a test here. Let's create a new file, test.php. And let's just put this here, and let's add output is empty array, and result code is null. And then let's just do print r output and result code. And this should be, it's actually going to be in quotes, and it's going to be, let's actually add a variable, data dir, and data dir is going to be current directory /data. Let's say that first. And we are going to map it here, and we are going to run code. And let's say that the code is print hello world. And let's run this. So if we actually run it from the browser, so we go to test.php, then we got nothing. So it didn't work. And the code is this command, and let's do echo command. And then if we do this, then that is the command we are trying to run. And let's try to run it from here. And we need to use sudo. syntax error. Wait a minute. I should not have the quotes around here. So let's try this again. Okay, now it's actually doing it. So that is probably the issue. So I have to remove quotes from here because escape shell argument will already add the quotes. So let's try again. Let's go here and code interpreter, create a sample of a bell curve. And now what we're going to do is we are going to say, I apologize, but it seems that I am currently unable to save the plot as an image file. Okay, did we get some errors somewhere? We got this, but this was a couple of minutes ago, so maybe that was... Wait, we have it here again. Okay, what happened there? Let's go to our test again. And in fact, okay, we did get the error that we don't have the permission. So how do we get the permission? Let's actually verify first that we are data, which we are not, because I'm running the PHP built-in server. Then it is running it on my account. So I guess I have to log out and log back in. So I'm going to do that and see you in 1 second. All right, I have now logged out and back in. Hopefully it now works. So let's try and see if we go to test.php and we run it, then we in fact ran hello world. So now we can run Docker from our PHP script. Great. So let's in fact try the actual application now. So if we are going to go here and we select code interpreter and we say create a sample of a bell curve, then we get an error because I have to add my OpenAI API key. Just a moment. All right, I have now added my API key to the environment. So now I can run code interpreter and I can say create a sample of a bell curve. And then we are going to hopefully do it and we can actually see it here. Okay, we got an error. I apologize for the inconvenience. It seems that there is an issue with saving the plot to a file. Okay, however, you can still see the sample bell curve below. And what is the URL of this? Oh, it added a URL from Wikipedia, which apparently is not correct. But what went wrong now? Do we get any errors here? We do not. Now, in fact, we probably don't need this new root here anymore, but I'm not sure if that is the issue here. What if we remove it from here and we go to test.php? It still works. So what if we have multiple lines in the code? Is it still going to work? If we add another print here, yo, then does it work? It in fact does work. So that should be fine. But aha, what is PLT? Why do we have a file called PLT? Did this come just now? Let's do lslALH. No, this one came already earlier, so that is not the problem anymore. Let's remove it. But what is the problem now? Let me see the code it creates. So let's in fact take the whole thing. So the command is this. And let's just do a file, put contents, command.text, command. And let's run this thing again. Create a sample of a bell curve. And let's take a look. Do we have command.text is this? So in fact, it puts the whole thing in here, but is that a valid command? And here it says again, I apologize for the inconvenience. So what is wrong with this? Let's just copy this and run it directly. Docker, error response from daemon. Create data/167/data. Includes invalid characters. Wait a minute. Okay, so we should have a / maybe in the beginning. Let's see if that will help, or maybe we cannot have it in quotes. So let's do that. And that works. Okay, so that is the problem. So now we probably actually saved it. So here we have now the bell curve. Okay, so now it's going to work. So we have to add the dot in there, or the whole directory. I thought this is the whole full path, but it is not. So I'm going to add here dir./. So let's run it one more time and see that it works. So let's create a sample of a sine wave. And are we going to create a sine wave? We are going to create it, but it still doesn't work. So let's see what happened. I put it in the wrong place. So it put it in the source folder. So that is not the correct location. And I cannot delete it. I have to say sudo rmrf src/data. So what we actually want to do is we want to have this as //. So I'll extract this into a variable. So data dir full path, and data dir full path is that. And let's see now if it finally will work. So now if we say create a graph of the first 15 prime numbers, then it is going to create it and it will show it to us. And here it is. Look at this. It actually created it. And we have the file here, of course, because we can show it. So 169 as data / prime numbers.png. And here it is. So now it works. And we are running it in an isolated environment. So let's actually try now to do our malicious attempt. And let's say write hello world into ... index.php. And let's see what will happen. I have successfully written hello world into the file index.php. So let's actually see, did we get the command here? So we opened ... index.php and we wrote hello world in there, which I guess we can do, but if I refresh this page, it still works because we did this inside of the Docker container. So that's pretty cool. Now we avoid this issue. Now we do have one problem here, which is that if we actually want to run this whole thing in Docker, then we can't run Docker from inside Docker, at least not easily and safely. So we have to figure out some other way that you can actually run the whole project with Docker. Now, if you're just running it locally, then I guess it's enough. You just have to restart Docker if you screw something up. But I really would like to have a way to run this even in Docker, but then have the Python script in a separate environment. Now, I have one idea for that, but that is going to be another video. So make sure to subscribe to my channel if you want to see that one. And leave me a like and a comment, and I will see you in the next one.